Thank you, Dana. Curious, how many of you work for a society? Most of you, I think. How many of you help societies publish their journals? Okay, that was my guess about who would be here today and interested in talking about our society approaches to knowledge integration. So without further ado, let's play with the term knowledge integration. I sought a few definitions from dictionaries. The process of incorporating new information into a body of existing knowledge with an interdisciplinary approach. That interdisciplinary approach has been fundamental for our experience at the Endocrine Society, and I hope that I'll be able to convince you that we're stronger when we work together in that sort of cross-functional approach. Another definition, understanding how new information and existing knowledge interact to determine how existing knowledge and new information should be modified in light of the ever-evolving environment. Or really, what has become the definition that we use at the Endocrine Society now is knowledge integration for us at the Society has become almost a cultural shift. It's an organizational and operational change in the way that we collect and share and process information to derive greater knowledge. Knowledge that is then used to make better decisions about our members' needs in practice and in research and in teaching, but also about making business decisions internally. And ultimately, the goal is to deliver greater value. So that's what knowledge integration has come to mean at the Endocrine Society. I think knowledge integration is an interesting term that has many different uses and interpretations depending on the context, but this is our approach. So I think Dana gave you a good setup on this as to why do we need to change the way that we're doing things. And the slides that I have here are really slides that talk about the way that we've talked with our leadership and our staff about organizational change in this construct of knowledge integration. And so as you know, at the click of a button, there's more information than ever before delivered to you or your audiences, your members. And really what our members or our different audiences need today is not more information. They need good curation. So they need credible information. They need it to be prioritized, hopefully personalized, which personalization is something that's so important in this day and age. But it's been technically rather hard for the Endocrine Society to deliver personalization. My background, before becoming the Chief Innovation Officer, I was the Director of Education. So when we started this knowledge integration effort, I was approaching it as the Director of Education, and I was doing it hand in hand with leadership from within our education committees who were talking about how modern technology and the web has changed the way that people learn. And we talked about the way that people learn from K-12 to medical school and lifelong learning. And so in that context, we were helping leadership at our board of directors, where most were in their 7th decade of life. We were helping them to think about what it's like to be in your 2nd and 3rd decades of life. And helping them to see that, yes, you still really like print, but the audience of today and of the future is moving beyond just print. And they have a lot of expectations about where they're going to go. So today's learners are native technology users. I am in my mid-40s. I'm not a native technology user. When I was in college, yeah, email had started. There really wasn't much going on the World Wide Web. I graduated, I went off to the Peace Corps. When I came back, the world was different. Everything had a .com address. Every commercial for every product had a website. It was a completely different world. So the audience, the learner of today, really does expect to be able to do a search more often than not on their phone and to access valuable content at that moment that's going to meet their need. And at that point in time, it could very well be that they're in the clinic and they're trying to make a decision about a diagnosis and they want a point of care reference or a tool to help with dosing. Or maybe they want to access a patient education video to share with the patient who's sitting right there with them in the clinic. And of course, the vast majority of the content that we publish in our journals is really primary research. And so we have a research audience as well as a clinical practice audience, and they have very different wants and needs depending on where they are at any given point in time. So for us, we did a technology survey to try and gauge where are people today. These data are about a year old now, but 80% of our members expect to have interesting online education, and 87% of them expect it to be on a tablet, and over 80% want it to be delivered on a smartphone. This is very different than what we have been doing. We have absolutely been a desktop-focused organization. That is changing quickly. So it was in this context that we had this conversation with our board of directors, and the reason we were having that conversation was because we needed them to recognize a reason to explore change, but also we needed them to give us the resources, the money, to invest in starting our path down this knowledge integration initiative road that began with actually hiring a content strategist. And in our case, we chose to work with Hillary Marsh. What you see here are a bunch of steps or deliverables that have been part of the knowledge integration initiative that we've undertaken to date. When the work began, there was a lot of discovery, and that involved, combing through the types of data reports that we all have, lots of membership surveys, lots of evaluation data, but also then conducting stakeholder interviews. And most of the work that Hillary has done, and many of these other types of strategists have done, is focused purely on working with staff within an organization to operationally improve the way that business is conducted. What was a little bit different is that from the very beginning, we wanted to make this an opportunity for senior member leadership engagement as well. So part of the work involved creating empathy-based personas, and I think many of you have worked with personas in the marketing or web spaces before. They're really key for delivering content appropriately to your core audiences, but also thinking about new product development. It's a great tool. In particular, in an organization such as ours, we're a medium-sized society, a staff of about 90. And I would say of that 90, maybe 5 to 10 have a background in endocrinology. So most of those have scientific training, not clinical training. So they sort of understand what members in research, in particular laboratory research, what their lives are like and what their wants and needs may be. But the majority of our staff are lay business people who might not necessarily have a really good understanding of our clinical members. So we look at these personas as tremendously helpful. In particular, when we turn to our new product development efforts, but also to work with our marketing team and our communications team, who have to understand, okay, what if this is really going to resonate with a member? Because a lot of our communication in the past has really been transactional. Hey, register for this, buy that. A very comprehensive content audit looking at everything that we've produced and published in the education portfolio, in our social media, all of the email messaging that we've done. We did not comb through every single journal article published. Simply the volume was too great, and I think ultimately the trends were pretty clear as to what was going on in that space. And to be frank, we already had a big strategic initiative already underway examining our publications, and that was actually in partnership with Kaufman Willis Fusting. And so we had that data in hand to already share with the strategist when we started on this. So as you can see, moving beyond that, we've looked at best practices and guidelines and governance were things we did not necessarily have in place when it came to publishing, and in particular on our website or in our digital newsletters. And then the last piece is the piece that's still in progress, and that's really helping us understand how to sunset, transition, and then migrate content forward into what will be our new digital environment. So our task force was put together with key leaders from across all of the core content creating channels or committees within our organization. And that was strategic because we wanted all of our committees to get on board with recognizing a need for change. And hopefully we could then have key members embedded in each of those committees who would then carry the message forward and help us operationalize change when we were ready to make it. So there were 5 key recommendations that came out of our member task force, and I organized them into 2 big buckets. And really, one is about how do we organize and deliver content, and then the second one is how do we plan and create and publish. The key recommendation really is to deliver it topically. And to make it audience-centric is really, as I described, typically driven by a search that's driven by a clinical need or a research need, topical. The personalization piece is what we're working on in terms of our digital strategy. The plan, create, and publish, this is where the governance pieces are. Because what we have done is we've largely operated for a long time in this old-fashioned sort of channel-specific. There's a committee and a product or a meeting and an audience. We've had these verticals and very few horizontal connections across them. Occasionally there was a presidential initiative that everybody knew they had to sort of fall in line and support. But more often than not, each of these different very proficient divisions within our organization were setting their own priorities and doing their own thing. And the new paradigm really is to shift away from that and to have people come together, work on a common priority, identify what the mission of that task force may be, identify who are the audiences and the big picture content goals that we want to achieve. Do we want to change practice around a clinical practice topic, for instance? Maybe we're going to create a guideline to treat menopause. So who are the audiences for that guideline? And there are many different audiences, core member audiences, but lots of audiences beyond our membership in primary care and certainly in the public, lots of patients. So identify all your appropriate audiences, think about what are the appropriate kinds of content to meet their needs, and work together as a team to map it out and to plan and deliver in an integrated fashion so that all of your channels, all of your committees are all saying the same thing, perhaps to a different audience, but all saying the same thing, working in harmony to help address this gap, perhaps in menopause treatment. So this is the shift that we're making, moving away from just having these verticals doing their own things, creating the horizontal connections, and really what we're aiming to do is to do those with topical advisories. So adding, some organizations call them scientific committees or topical committees. In our world today, the Endocrine Society is going into its strategic plan. So we expect a fairly big shakeup of our existing governance. But with the groundwork that we've laid with the last 2 years of knowledge integration self-learning, hopefully we've set up the strategic plan process so that we will see an outcome where we shift to more topical planning, and hopefully those will be then executed in a society-wide fashion. On the staff side, one of the things that we've done to help support communication and create these horizontal connections is by launching a content team, which really is pulling in the key product line owners and decision makers from across the organization to talk about a uniform society-wide editorial calendar. In the publication world, obviously, lots of content is flowing in, and you're not going to know what necessarily will be the hottest thing to get accepted in the journal this month. But when it comes to invited articles, you certainly can plan ahead, and you can work in synchrony between the publications division and the education division and the guidelines and the public-facing patient education group. Something else that we've done is we've begun training almost all of our staff on writing for the web. In our smallish, medium-sized association, we have a decentralized approach to publishing on our web platform. So on our website, each group is creating their content, they're submitting it. There's a small web tech team that's responsible for making sure that everything's good and doing some light editorial, but not necessarily deep editorial. And so we need to make sure that the content that's streaming into this is good from the start. So helping people understand content strategy, identifying an audience, understanding what the content goals are before they create content, and then helping to work in this sort of society-wide fashion ensures that we're creating better content for the website, for our digital newsletters, for social media, et cetera. And then one of the things that we've delivered in the interim is more of a topical organization for content. And so we've got, sort of a high-level taxonomy that is now going to be uniform across all of our platforms, because every single platform had its own taxonomy and they were all very different. Until you create the Rosetta Stone, you can't link these content buckets together very effectively. And then when you dive into one of these, you can see that content is curated and then separated by format. And then the last piece that I will share with you is our digital transformation work. So we went through this initial work thinking about content strategy and content goals, and that then begot the next request of our board, which is, okay, we know we need to change what we're doing. We really need to deliver on personalization. We need to link all of our digital platforms to be able to enable somebody to access all of these different kinds of content in one single search. So we're working with Interactive Strategies, a digital strategy firm, and the various components of their work are, as I said, really doing a deep technical assessment to help us figure out how we can link up all these different platforms and channels. They are working to propose the architecture for how we'll conduct our digital integration. And then as we implement the taxonomy, our goal is to then go out for yet another RFP to hire the firm that would actually build it. So we're right now just working with the architect. We haven't hired the contractor or the builder. So we are right now really sort of moving into year 2 of our work. And hopefully in the future I'll be able to report out on great progress. So we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to pass the baton off to Kristen.
Thanks so much, Rob.